Welcome back. We are about to start our final session for the day. And right now we're talking about end-to-end integration along the energy value chain. What does that mean? Well, according to ARENA, the expected cumulative annual growth rate of electricity demand in the EU and UK is 1.8% until 2030. At the same time, if we meet the new Repower EU targets, renewable energy generation capacity will increase by 61% by the end of the decade. 70% of this will be connected to distribution grids. Integrating decentralized assets into a grid that needs to be modernized and expanded at the same time, as more electricity consuming assets, heat pumps and EVs are being added to, is no easy task. A lot of things happening at the same time. So how can we deal with all of these challenges at once? How is this changing the roles of energy players? And why is holistic integration becoming so important? To discuss this, we have Jan de Smet, who started his journey within Engie more than 25 years ago as a chief audit executive for the European and international energy activities. 10 years ago, he moved to Engie's marketing and sales, Belux entity, the operating entity in charge of energy supply and energy services to B2C and B2B customers. In M&S Belux, he first took up the position of head of operations, and since 2020, he's been the managing director of energy transition solutions for B2C at M&S Belux, and a board member of all Engie's B2C service companies in Belgium. Jan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
My pleasure. Joining him, we also have Rainer Enzenhöfer, who holds a PhD in the field of stochastic modeling of hydro systems. He's been working at TransnetBW, or BW, for over 8 years. He was project manager for the organization of smart grids, as a manager for disruptive developments in the grid economy, and was responsible for an e-mobility transformation project. Here, blockchain technology enabled energy communication processes and the smart grid. Rainer is also involved in other innovation projects in the Redispatch 3.0 environment and teaches energy management in decentralized networks at Reutlingen University. Rainer, welcome to the panel. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for the introduction, Greta.
My pleasure. Antonella Battaglini is also joining us, and she has been the Managing Director of the European Climate Forum, Program Director of Smart Energy for Europe platform. She co-founded the Compensators, a not-for-profit association that deletes emission allowances from the EU emission trading scheme. And she won the Tailberg Global Leadership Award in 2015. She was a scientist at the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research for 17 years and has been the CEO of the Renewables Grid Initiative for almost 13 years. The RGI, the Renewables Grid Initiative, is a unique collaboration of NGOs and TSOs from across Europe that promotes transparent, environmentally sensitive grid development to enable further steady growth of renewable energy and the energy transition. Antonella, welcome to the panel.
Thank you very much for having me here.
And finally, we have Gordon Charles Thompson, who's held a variety of roles in marketing and strategy, partnerships, founded 2 companies that develop educational solutions for kids, worked as a portfolio partner at Energy Innovation Hub, Senior Strategic Partnership Manager at E.ON Innovation, and is now Corporate Development VP, Corporate Development and Partnerships at E.ON One. His team's mission is to secure access to technologies and capabilities needed for E.ON One to lead the energy industry toward a greener, more connected and sustainable future, while continuing to provide their customers with reliable, cost-effective and sustainable smart energy solutions. Gordon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Greta.
All right, let's dive straight into the questions. So Gordon, what does the electrification of mobility and heating mean for energy players?
Means a lot of risk, to be honest, but it also means a lot of opportunity. And that is what E.ON One, which is the business unit inside of E.ON where I'm working now, we're trying to take advantage of those types of opportunities, working with companies like GridX, Envelio, etc. As most who are joining us today would know, matching supply with demand is becoming significantly more difficult in a world with intermittent production. And the problems that arise from that is it's becoming harder to provide affordable energy, which is reliable and sustainable at the same time. That's a difficult equation to balance. We will need digital solutions and smart solutions and coordination of resources and assets to be able to solve those problems. And we believe that digital solutions is the key to that. So yes, it's a complicated one to solve.
It absolutely is, and it's a tricky question to start with, but I think it's a nice introduction. Jan, you wanted to add something?
Yes, of course, there's a lot of complexity to be managed, as Gordon pointed out. I think personally that electrification of mobility and heating provides a great opportunity for growth for energy retailers like ourselves, a company I'm working in. A great opportunity for growth and also a great opportunity for engaging with the customer on another level than on an energy bill. It's on products and service energy transition topics, and it's also a great opportunity for the environment and reducing carbon footprint. So I look at it with, of course, there are risks associated clearly, and demand and production matching. A lot of issues to tackle, but it's a revolution. It's an energy vendor that continues and provides necessary challenges, but also opportunities. And I look at it with great admiration that we are in this period on this field. I think a lot of people would love to be in energy, because energy has never been as sexy as today, I would say.
Couldn't agree more. And Jan, to enable some of the things that you just talked about, pushing a common standard is quite important. How can we make integration easier, both across devices and regions?
Well, first of all, let me start by saying that I'm not a pure technical standard protocols type of guy, but I hear my colleagues, my teammates, my squad members working on home energy management solutions complaining nearly every week that it's so tough that the assets that we are selling, by the way, like heat pumps and EV charging and solar panels and inverters and batteries domestic, that they are not compatible, that they are not open, that they cannot, that are difficult to access to, that they have proprietary protocols, and they make it. So that's frustrating them. It's hard work, and it's frustrating me as well, because they come to me to try to explain me all those technical protocol type of stuff, like complicated words like Modbus, eBus, Zigbee, Open APIs, OCCP. It's a nightmare. So it's quite frustrating, and it's clearly that it's not in the interest of the customer neither. Because of course the customer increasingly wants more integrated type of solutions, like of course with an EV, PV comes along. PV charging for the EV at the best time of the day. It's a normal requirement, or becomes a normal requirement depending on the markets where they're into, but definitely in the Belgian market that's like an in Dutch market as well, that becomes like evident, those combinations. So so it is clear that to me how that will get pushed is by the voice of the customer and the customer needs, and that are exceedingly going forward towards more integration and need towards integration. In the past, you could just buy solar panels and that was about it. Today, well, it's more like, no, you need the solar panels, you need the inverter, you need the battery, you need smart charging, and you want to make use of dynamic pricing in the market, the time of use, you want to answer to flexibility, gain some benefits from it, increase your self-consumption. So for that, you need more integration. So I think that the main push will come because of the need of the customer and the response that companies that are in contact with the customer will give. Looking at ourselves, it's clear that I'm telling to my teams, we're only going to sell PV and inverters and batteries that we afterwards can manage the energy through. So if those things are not open, then I'm not interested in selling those types of products, which appear to be very much protected, not open, proprietary. Same goes for heat pumps, for instance. So it becomes then a question that we are just not going to sell products that are not sufficiently open, and that we hope will inspire the manufacturers to open up their devices for cross asset utilization for energy management purposes. Now on a more technical level, there is some ray of sunshine in all that protocol stuff that we see. That's like for the newest assets entering the market, newer assets like EVs and charging poles compared to solar panels, for instance, or heating systems. EVs apparently share to a higher degree the same types of protocols for communication, like OCCP. For PV and inverters and PV inverters, apparently it's going to SunSpec as a standard. Heat pumps apparently still highly fragmented today, but I would say so. We see per asset class some evolution towards more standardization. For HEMS, which comes cross assets, there we see yes, like the rise of protocols such as Modbus and eBus. So I would say yes, in the proliferation of protocols, we see some trends which make it then a little bit easier for the teams to still have some kind of compatibility for HEMS that they are developing. But as said, typically for me, the voice of the customer, the need of the customer, will make the more significant push towards standardization. Without that standardization, I think there will not be one common standard. Probably a few, and so it will become important for like energy management systems to have a gateway that can handle a few different types of protocols to optimize the home energy management, taking into account the multiple assets there are.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rainer, you wanted to add something to that?
You're on mute.
Now, well, thanks. I agree with Jan. It's a nightmare looking on the protocol basis which is out there, and you also mentioned that on an asset class there is quite a successful standardization. Looking into EVs, we talk about OCPP protocols, right? But nevertheless, even if we have a standardization, every car or every manufacturer has their own dialect, and this is also very challenging because the dialect is sometimes not easy to find out, and so I liked actually that the other thing you said, that the manufacturers open up their devices, and so that we have a larger access to an open protocol, more or less, because the OCPP or EE-bus, you mentioned them. Some devices are EE-bus ready, but the function itself is not implemented yet because there's no demand behind it. And then EE-bus says, well, we don't implement it yet because the demand is not that high that it's value enough for them to invest the time to program these protocols. So I think there's still a way to go, that we have let's put it that way, that a customer can also switch between suppliers, because that's the next point. I mean, Gordon, you're for E.ON, yeah? So now you have a E.ON World, a smart home system for E.ON, and Jan, sorry, you are from Engie, right? And you also have an own energy system. And now the question is, how can a customer switch from the supplier? And that's quite difficult right now. And there we need a standardization that the customer can freely access the supplier and also the aggregators that provide flexibility, so that you're not driven by the manufacturer or where you buy your devices.
And Antonella, you wanted to add a point to that?
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I must say that I feel I am in the wrong panel because I do not know any of these details, but I know some general stuff, and I want to share with you. First of all, I think that if we really want to go through this energy transition, we should stop looking at it as an incremental process. It's not that turning the screws a bit here and there, you will get through that. So it requires completely new way of thinking, and standardization is definitely one of them. But the reason why we do not have standardization is exactly what has been mentioned by Rainer. Essentially, differences have been created as a competitive advantage, as a way to keep customers. And so moving ahead, when we have a lot of challenges to deal with, as well as opportunities, we need to understand that probably in a shared open source way of thinking, there would be much more business for everybody, less risks, and definitely less cost for consumers. The other thing I want to mention is that, Gordon, you open up this panel by saying that with intermittent production, where we are nowadays in a world that has moved away from the considering wind and solar as intermittent, but we talk about variability. And this is important because it's a mindset. And so if we really want to continue to have an economy and an energy system that it is affordable and just, we need to highlight what are the possibilities that we have there within Europe, because we don't want to fight a geopolitical game. We know that it is very dangerous and very costly. And essentially make clear that energy will never be as cheap as it used to be in the past years, but it has to be fair. And so how do we increase fairness into the energy system is also a way to shape our future economic development. So I'm sure that now the other three feels as in a strange mood as I felt in the first 10 minutes of this call. Thank you.
Gordon, you wanted to respond to that?
Yes, please. I know I started the talk a little bit on the pessimistic side of things, describing all the problems that we're facing and that there are massive challenges with all the trends coming our way. Mentioned heat pumps, EV, etc. That's causing a lot of problems for our industry. However, as also mentioned, and I think Jan did a pretty good job at describing, it also means enormous opportunities. We currently have an energy crisis in Europe. This is going to require a lot of coordination and working together on multiple levels. However, I don't believe this is the new normal, that we will have to deal with expensive energy forever. I do believe we are going to figure out how to solve these issues together and make energy affordable again and sustainable. I mean, what we've seen happen with renewables is absolutely incredible. Renewables used to be incredibly expensive, and they're becoming cheaper and cheaper, and we've already reached parity with coal, etc. As mentioned, yes, we should maybe see it more as energy flows and they ebb and move. With the intermittent piece that I was saying essentially it is more difficult matching supply and demand with renewables, but that's where the opportunity lies, is solving those problems, and that's why we're talking here today. That's why we're working together here, These are massive problems, and we don't know how to solve them exactly. But the companies that figure out how to solve those problems, they will essentially determine what the energy system of the future will look like. And they're the ones that the regulators are going to listen to.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more, Gordon. Antonella, you wanted to make another point on that?
Yes, please. So I think that what is important is also to realize that I agree, Gordon, prices may go down, doesn't matter. But the reality is that we are beyond this world of plenty that we have been believing in for many decades. And we are in a world of scarcity. We have scarcity on everything. We have scarcity on generation side, on supply chains, on material, on space, you name it, it's scarce. And this requires everybody to look at the energy system with a completely new mindset, because you don't want to match demand and generation anymore. You want to be able to access. So demand should follow availability, and how to make this possible requires new market products, a new way of optimizing demand, optimizing flexibility, because only through this process we bring a lot of innovation, and we indeed manage to transform the system. I'm always struggling with the fact that we want to fix the problems with the same elements that belong to another system. We need new thinking, we need new solutions.
New thinking, new solutions. I think Gordon has a response to that.
Yes, I completely agree with that. We need a paradigm shift, essentially. And the free market is an incredibly powerful mechanism of innovation for selecting the winners of those types of paradigm shifts. It's not the first time we've had an energy crisis in human history. We've gone through many of these stages through our development, that we moved from one fuel source to another fuel source. And we usually changed fuel sources mainly because the one we were using was running out or becoming too expensive. And we essentially went to a completely different fuel source. And it usually was more abundant and was even cleaner. And we've tended to move. And I think that progression will continue. We will need to innovate our way out of this problem. And that innovation will come from many areas. And I have an incredible faith in the free market mechanism for allocating resources for those types of problems to be solved. And we see many interesting topics being developed right now that could potentially solve those issues at scale.
And Jan, what's your view on that?
Yes, coming back to Antonella on scarcity, it's clear all the points she mentioned, the scarcity everywhere, and the materials, and the supply of materials and supply chains, everything is under pressure today. But some phenomenon that I've seen, being already quite a long while active in the energy sector, is the change in the elasticity of the demand. So in the beginning, we could not influence consumer behavior. Even we could say it's a scarcity. Watch out with the consumption of energy. There was no change. The demand, it didn't change. But if we look at what's happening today, and notably on the gas side, and with the gas prices, I can tell you the consumption behavior has changed significantly. So there is a higher awareness of consumers of the scarcity, and of course, indeed, a function of the market through the height of the prices. That's clear that we are seeing now way more consumers being preoccupied with their energy consumption, that it is a scarce thing, that they should watch out in their consumption, in the management thereof. So that's why I'm saying that coming from an energy supplier that had a billing relation with customers, and that the only conversation was about the energy bill, like once a year maybe, we are entering into way more customer engagement regarding the consumption pattern, how to reduce it, when to use it. And that is I think where whereas in the past probably the solutions were add more production capacity. It is much more like, okay, influence the consumption to be at the time of the production, or to reduce it. First, reduce it. Only consume what is absolutely necessary, and then okay at the time, at the optimal time. So I think there a great deal of the innovation and time needs to go into, and that's also for an energy supplier quite a change. Certainly for integrated utilities, very asset-like and production-like, much less consumer, customer-like. So that's a fundamental shift in terms of where to look at, and it all requires also another mindset from pure engineering on production to much more customer intimacy.
Yeah. And Antonella, you had another comment on that?
Yes. So first of all, I want to mention that neoclassical economics and markets have failed us. So I do believe that markets have an important role to play, but markets need to have a purpose, because we have seen a lot of things are going wrong because of these neoclassical beliefs. But with regard to scarcity, I think that there is also an increasing need to become aware that we have shaped perception and behavior. So the sectors shape perception and behavior, and now we need to help consumers to behave differently. It's not just an external push, but it is how the different companies engage in explaining and anticipating what is coming. What we have pushed for is this freedom for the consumers to choose among anything that is available, and also what is not available. But the reality that this is not functioning anymore, it's not possible. So it's not a freedom, it's a kind of a new way of, it is a prison of consumerism. But if we really want to have a reliable energy system in a world of scarcity, we need to educate and help consumers to make the right choices, to bring them a new way of really making choices. And so the entire energy sector, not alone, but with many other players, has an incredible role to play in this.
And Gordon, I'm sure you have a response to that. Gordon, you're muted.
Thank you. Yes, I'm a strong believer in pricing signals, and I believe that is an incredibly effective way of coordinating markets. We don't have that in our system here in Europe, and I think Jan was mentioning to that. Customers care at the moment deeply about the prices that they're spending on energy at the moment, but they have no control of steering that. They can't decide to take a shower at a certain time of the day or to cook water, or they can't make any decisions that would affect the pricing of their energy consumption. It's the same all the time. That's because pricing signals aren't baked into how it works, at least with retail consumers at the moment. And it's really unfortunate because we do see many technologies or many innovative companies, both in Europe and the US, working on business models to address exactly these problems, but they're just not legal. So we'd be hugely interested in testing them or working with them. We see quite a lot happening in the UK, which is really interesting because they've got the sandbox set up, and same in the Netherlands. But in Germany, for instance, we can't even really test these types of business models because they're not allowed to be tested. It'd be interesting once that catches up.
Mm-hmm. Antonella?
Yeah, I think this is a great turn in the discussion, because due to the current crisis, actually, there may be an opportunity to move in this direction. There's been always a block interest group that didn't want to have these real-time pricing signals. And so probably there is the one window of opportunity to get this done quickly. I think the technologies are all there, and the deployment can also go much faster than we believe. And I am 100% convinced that this will bring huge change in the from the demand side, at the benefit of the entire system, by the way. And of course, then you can link to locational pricing and other more complex and difficult, politically difficult discussion, but real-time pricing is a must in this energy transition.
Thanks, Antonella. And Rainer, you wanted to comment on that?
Yeah, well, quite interesting to listen. There are many things I could definitely agree that we need a paradigm shift. Yeah, that the demand follows the generation, of course. And one thing, Gordon, I also experienced that business models are not really, to be implemented in Germany right now because the regulatory framework is not access or allowing it. Yeah, and the good thing is, to my opinion, for now, was that we still see by the politician that there is a shift to be more open for opening up sandbox rooms, yeah, in Germany as well, but it's only in the context of research projects. Yeah, so well, in Baden-Württemberg we are just typing right now, or writing a smart grids roadmap, and it's one point where we address that we need showrooms and also sandbox that we can show that these type of business model also work. But on the other hand, we also asked the question on participation, right? Because I think Antonella just said it, maybe the crisis is now at that point where people are sensitive enough to react on the market prices, but I don't have to go too far from my home. Talking to friends, they are maybe not willing to look on an app and settle prices. And you all know we have an early adopter, but we also have late adopter, and we have also some group who never adopt anything. So of course, yeah, market prices solves at one hand, but on the other hand, maybe we also have to force people by regulation to go to that. So it's always something in between. Yeah, I have no feeling yet where it goes to. We have the same discussion about in the flexibility context, how to enable flexibility for system services or also for grid services. And we do not know yet. Should we make it mandatory, or should we do it on a voluntary basis? Because in one of our projects with BMW, where we have bidirectional cars, we have several customers, and our model said they will earn 600 euros a year. Yeah, I think also E.ON is also part of that project. You maybe know, Gordon, but at the end, the reality showed 200 euros, and people were saying, well, that's not enough. Yeah. So, I don't know where we're going.
Yeah, I've seen similar projects done in the Netherlands with Teslas. Same thing. They were making between 80 and 160 euros profit a year by leasing their batteries. And as you said, people with a BMW or with a Tesla don't need an extra 160 bucks a year. It's an interesting use case, and at scale, it becomes very interesting. And we're still trying to solve all these issues. But I mean, these use cases were also run at a time when energy prices were significantly lower. And that's why we need to talk about pricing signals. I mean, you know, a year and a half ago, I didn't even think about my energy bill. I only looked at it every 4 or 5 months. Whilst now I'm significantly more interested in what's happening with my energy bill. That's a pricing signal, and it means that we're starting to make decisions that affects how our energy is consumed, and that's how the market's meant to work. There's a scarcity at the moment, and now we all have to consider where do we want to allocate our resources to be most efficient. and that will allow resources, the scarce resources we have, be better allocated across the market. And we're going to need to do that more intelligently in a more granular format. As Reino was mentioning, I don't believe people want to walk around in the future and look at apps whilst, skipping between TikTok and Facebook and deciding how much energy their washing machine should be consuming or something. These are things that should run in the background and be preset, and it's more machine to machine algorithmic decision making, when to consume, when not to consume. People shouldn't spend their time worrying about when their refrigerator is consuming energy or maybe not. It should all run in the background and make our lives simpler and more resilient. But
so that's exactly the point. Sorry, God, because that's
absolutely, please.
Yeah, so we need to think about how do you make your money? E.ON, Engie, do you make money on quantity? But maybe you should stop making money on quantity. You should make money on the service you provide. So instead of looking at under 60 euro for a Tesla driver, look at the package for an household, a flat of a family of 4 in 2 rooms, and provide them with a full package that then will make a difference for them. So I think that there is not a discussion about what people want, moving from the app, where do I put the washing machine on, now or later, but rather machine to machine talking, and a package that is given as a contract, a service contract, a way. And this is a completely different mindset. And I want to stress that because of the scarcity, because of the social pressure that we have today, let's stop looking at Germany, because Germany is one of the most conservative countries in Europe, where nothing is worth unless it has been tested within the German border, ideally in Bavaria. So, and let's really make sure that there are very robust and sound propositions that are put on the table to the policymakers, to the prime minister, because they are actually now in need of these solutions, and they can be deployed fast if you get organized among yourself, by the way.
Jan, you want to add something to that?
Yes, to one of the points.
Yeah.
Good intervention, Antonella. I'm not very active on the German market, so I can't tell. I'm on the Belgian and the Dutch market. But on the point, yes, in the past, definitely an energy supplier was making money on the quantity. But looking at the penetration of rooftop solar in the B2C market, clearly it's not anymore on the quantities, because the customers are just putting as much solar on their rooftop as they consume. So net, it's zero. So if your business was to sell quantities of energies, you're not anymore selling quantities of energy to those customers. So clearly it's on the service proposition, and like, okay, longer term type of contracts, or as a service type of contracts, providing and the solar panels and a battery towards customers, guaranteeing like a price, and of course with consumption that then needs to stay within certain boundaries. So that is clearly a trend in evolution. It's definitely not yet the dominant use case. We still have more people not having solar panels than people having solar panels in the market. But like in Belgium, in Netherlands, with high penetrations of solar, like we are speaking of 25–30% of the households already having solar. So it is becoming hugely important to change the value propositions to still be relevant for those customers. And then depending on the market, and you have some more advanced markets, like in the Flemish market, it's probably the most, it's one region in Belgium. There we have a separation of production and injection, and another valorization of the injection in the market. And then, of course, consumers, they need to increase their auto consumption. It's an extremely powerful regulatory intervention to adjust the behavior of the customer, to consume when he is producing, or if he's not able to consume when he's producing, to store it domestically, to use it when he is there. So it is indeed not only price signals, can be regulatory intervention to make make that market happen. And that's what we are seeing in a tiny market like the Flemish market. It's like 6% of the Belgian country. But it's clear regulation can greatly help in making the thing happen.
So I agree with all of this. Just let's not forget, not everyone owns a roof. And we are far away from everyone owning a roof. So we really need packages that fit different situations. And if we only design packages that are for PV owner, then we leave a very big part of the citizens out with huge social problems, social and political problems. What we see today, because we are in a crisis, we see a lot of decisions that are taken that are completely irrational from an energy system point of view. I mean, we see that there is an incentive to consumption, while we need to have an incentive to saving. But all these subsidies or help packages are incentivized consumption. This is absolutely what we don't need.
Absolutely. Yeah, and what we also need is we need solutions that don't require customers to become energy experts.
Absolutely.
You know, customers want to have reliable, affordable energy and get on with their lives. They don't want to have to become an energy expert to consume energy affordably and reliably. And the market needs to provide those types of solutions. And I think everyone here is actually working on doing exactly that. But at times I've seen solutions trying to be explained to customers, and you can see that customers are having a hard time understanding exactly how this all works and deciding what, you know, between the permutations of options that they need to select from can be quite overwhelming at times.
And Gordon, to enable that, sorry, I just want to jump in there. To enable that simplicity for users, obviously, we as energy players need to collaborate, have partnerships, and that's the whole point of this is to have end-to-end integration, right? So we do the hard work, reduce the complexity so that the consumers can just see an app and it all works and it all functions together holistically. Yeah, so I guess my question is there, how important is integration partnerships? How can we ensure that we're doing that?
Enormously. To achieve that what was just described, have, you know, customers just being able to say, I want to have this solution, this contract, and you have your energy needs catered to. It's turnkey type. We need significantly more integration than we currently have. Jan and Reina were mentioning at the beginning just regarding protocols, and then, you know, one of the ones that drives me crazy is, how do we get all this hardware installed at the customer's residence? You know, when we start thinking about installer capacity, and the guys who are working there are smart. They've been working in the industry for decades, but they're not computer programmers, these installers. And we're expecting them to install hardware and software solutions that may go beyond their current training. How do we upskill and cross-skill? Jan, I can see you're eager to add something.
Yes, it is one of the issues I'm facing today. Yes, of course, we need, of course, products like charging poles and inverters and solar panels and heat pumps that are simple to install in the home and easily to connect to a digital meter with an easy journey for the customer. And of course, but they require physical intervention, and it's physical materials. And referring to the point on scarcity, there has been scarcity because a lot of those things we get imported from China, like onduleurs, the inverters, the micro inverters, big inverters, chips.
Yeah.
So it's been a nightmare in getting to those materials and explaining to the customer that there's delays in installation. Installation journey has become really complex, and right now we are facing, now that the materials are a bit arriving, significant installation capacity issues because of labor force that is missing for all the things that need to get installed. And in there is pure capacity issues, and of course also training, because we're talking about relatively new types of products that need to get installed. and I'm not talking about health and safety considerations that are on top of that. So
yeah,
it is not so easy to deliver that smoothly in an ideal customer journey in an end-to-end thing towards the customer. It's I'm struggling with that every day. So that's.
Yeah. And just shifting the discussion slightly, Raina, we've talked a lot about different challenges. One that we haven't talked about so much is grid modernization and expansion. How can we ensure that we meet rising electricity demand at the same time as having more renewables in the mix and, you know, have all of those, deal with all of those challenges?
Yeah, well, thanks, Greta. We on the one side, we already touched quite a lot because we talked a lot about smart grids, right? Because actually what Gordon or Jan already mentioned about having smart meters out there is exactly what we are looking in the smart grid part, where the customer should be enabled or should be enabled to react on a signal, for example, in the distribution grid, if there are high voltages or if there's it's just too much energy in the system. And the same also for us as a TSO, we also want to access these small devices for balancing energy, or also for the redispatch 3.0. That's, well, in Germany, it's right now that we have a huge redispatch problem. It's not that, I think in Belgium, you do not have that problem, and not that intense also in Britain, but we have huge costs of redispatch because we have so much energy production of wind and solar in the northern part of Germany, but the huge industrial centers are in the south or in the southwest, and so we have to transport all that energy from the north to the south, and our line capacities are just not big enough so far, and so we have huge redispatch potentials. And so especially in southern Germany, and we have also we do not see that manufacturers or power plants are getting built there. So the only way we out of that dilemma right now, we have two approaches or three approaches. One is, of course, grid expansion. Yeah, it's one part where we build our DC lines. Yeah, but the other one is more on getting to the regulator and asking them for, we call it a new construction concept, where we pay in advance to the power plant manufacturer already the cost for redispatch, so that their risk is reduced, so that he is incentivized to build power plants, yeah, because we anticipate how much redispatch we need from these plants. And thirdly is access to the small devices, and now we're at the customer again, and this is, I think, the biggest challenge, to my opinion, because we have so much to do. It's a multidisciplinary project. People are so diverse. You have the problems with the protocols. People maybe only want to use the energy for self-consumption, but actually we want that they use their electric vehicles for the grid. But we still believe in it, that it's gonna work, that we have an access to the electric vehicles. And when I look at we do the network development plans regularly, and the current network plan says that we're gonna have up to 130 gigawatts of electric vehicle capacities by 2037. This is immense, yeah, and not calculating the stationary home batteries. So this will add another bigger number of capacities. So I think there's quite much in the game, yeah, let's put it that way, but we have to lift that, yeah, on multiple sides, yeah, on grid expansion, grid modernization, and smart grids. Yeah.
Antonella, what's your take on that?
Well, it is clear that we need to massively scale renewable energy sources everywhere where it is possible to do it. and as well as both large scale and distributed. We need a growth in distributed resources, not only generation, but also flexibility resources. And it is also clear that we cannot scale up renewables without increasing, upgrading, and enlarging the electricity grid at all voltage level. So if we want to have more renewables, we need to want more grids. Point. The other thing that is absolutely important is that both renewables and grids, as well as other energy, but we are talking about this now, they require space, and space is very scarce. So spatial planning is absolutely important because we need to balance different interests. Either in the offshore or onshore, we need to allocate space for energy, but also to other economic activities, as well as to nature and people. And this, I come to the end of my input, is that we cannot speed up this energy transition at the expenses of nature, because we do not only have an energy crisis and a climate crisis, we also have a biodiversity crisis. And if you have energy, you don't have food, you still have a revolution. So looking at how do we balance different interests and deliver on multiple goals is absolutely essential. And it is also possible. This is what we deal with. And so it's not doing either or, it's always doing everything at the same time.
Mm-hmm. And Antonella, just one last question for you. When integrating between players, public engagement is also important part of it. And that's something that you deal with at the Renewables Grid Initiative. Can you tell me why that's so important and how we can also involve the public?
So it is now requested by a number of frameworks, as well as the Harris Convention, that is an international framework, that we do stakeholder engagement. I think that Europe has done a lot of it. It has improved a lot. The TSOs definitely have improved a lot in engaging people. But what is largely misunderstood is that public engagement is essential to get public support for what is being done, and also to get the knowledge from the people, because they do have knowledge that can deliver better solutions. But public engagement doesn't mean that any single idiot on planet Earth has the right to stop a project. So I'm being very blunt. And we need to realize that certain projects have to be deployed in a much faster way, provided that all the safeguards and the guardrails are in place. We cannot break the law. We have an environmental legislation in place, and today there is such a strong push to deregulate environmental protection, with the assumption that this will accelerate, but it will not, because people will protest. And so stakeholder engagement has to be meaningful, because only through stakeholder engagement you can really achieve the outcomes in a much faster way.
Thanks for that, Antonella. And Gordon, the energy industry is undergoing a huge shift from a linear value chain to a more complex, intertwined system. What will separate winners and losers in this shift?
That's the billion-dollar question, right? I guess the right team with the right technology at the right place at the right time. That's why I have a lot of faith. I mean, I can't answer that question. It depends in which direction the regulators go, which is driven by the politicians, which is driven by consumer demands. It's driven by many, many factors. Where I have a lot of faith is that the free market is an incredibly powerful mechanism for fostering innovation and financing it, seed financing innovation. And when the right team with the right technology at the right time is able to cater to a problem and solve that problem at a price point that customers are willing to open their wallets for, those businesses scale very, very quickly. And I mean, that's essentially what I'm responsible for at E.ON. So most probably I'm very biased, but I spend my time looking for the companies and the teams like GridX that have those characteristics of having the right technology with the right team at the right time, serving the problem that needs to be solved next. And we try to get involved with those companies just before the growth curve kicks in.
Mm-hmm. And Jan, do you have the answer? What separates winners and losers?
No, well, I find it a terribly tough question.
Yeah.
But it would have been more tougher and embarrassing in case it would have been who will be the winner compared to who will be the loser. But so it's on the what, and thinking of the what will separate winners from losers, I would refer to Darwinism. So that is, those are more adaptive to change, most adaptive to change. I guess that will be it. So flexibility, adaptability. I think, like on the protocols, it will need to be open, and nobody can figure this one out. And this is not the energy of the past, like programmed economy 50 years ago, big thinkers, and it's you need collective intelligence and openness to others. I think I would refer to those most adaptive to change. Probably will win it.
Which is essentially the teams who learn the fastest. As you said, observe, learn, adapt. Observe, learn, adapt. And the teams who do that the fastest and are the most efficient with allocating resources, they will be the winners. If I knew what it would be, I'd be building that company right now and raising the money to do so.
And Rainer, we've already talked about it, but decentralized system is particularly difficult for grid operators. If you could have one wish of what sort of regulatory change or what technology could help this system, what would that be?
Okay, okay, let's start with the regulation and then one thing to the technology part. So by regulation, of course, we would like, well, I'm a monopolist, right? So so we are paid for by the government, but nevertheless, we also want, or we are also doing a lot of innovative projects in the grid and also in the smart grid part, but we are not paid for that really. So we have our own risk, and I think the market also benefits from it if the grid operators are gets access to the incentive regulation. I hope that's now the correct English word for that, Anreizregulierung, so that if we do digital projects, so OPEX-based projects, that we get them refinanced, and also that it's worth to invest in it, like if we invest in grid expansion. So because it's kind of a chicken egg problem, because if we do not launch any products like what we just suggested last week, a hybrid market in the redispatch context for so that smaller assets can voluntarily take part in the grid. But if we are not paid for it, we are not offering that product. And so also the market is not reacting on it, but the market is also not reacting because you're not paid for it. So it's kind of a chicken egg problem. So that's so far to the regulation. I would like to have like digitalization budgets or something like that for us as a grid operator. And on a technology base, I really believe into digital identities actually. So that's a topic we are not touched it really, and I know our time is up, but I really think we talked in it, we said about things have to be automated and we have to have a machine-to-machine communication. But we only get a machine-to-machine communication if we have a IT trust layer where we basically know or trust that the machine is the machine I want to talk to. And also, if we ask for flexibility, we also want to know if it's that machine or another machine. So we need automation processes, and we kind of need identity identification. And so I think a big shift is going to be in the part of self-sovereign identities. There are several projects out there, and I believe, or I hope, that this will drive our energy transition a bit further. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rainer. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today, but thank you to all of our panelists for contributing and having a really great discussion. I think a lot of food for thought there. Thank you. Have a great afternoon. And then to all of our viewers, we will be back tomorrow at 12 talking about finding the next big thing and scaling it. And tomorrow we'll be focusing a little bit more on innovation, technological solutions of how we can enable the energy transition. So that's it for day 2 of GridXdays. We'll see you tomorrow at 12.